Hi, welcome back. I'm Hunter, your code cleric, and this is part 2 of my Cluster Bank 3-tier app. As you can see here on this page, I'm showing you all the data. This is what is stored in my Mongo database. You can see I have the name of the user, their email, and their balance, as well as a little ID marker. Over here, we can see this is my Mongo database, and right here, I have the ID of the specific user object, which contains their name, email, their password, which yes, you can see, and the balance for all of the database. You can also access the database through Postman, which I have here, just finding all data, and you can see I have all of the data once again being brought up. This is what's stored in my Mongo database. For accessing the database, we actually go through not just the index of the server, but the data abstraction layer, the DAL. You can see up here, the DAL is what requires Mongo, and here is the DAL connecting to the actual database. You can see the data abstraction layer is also what creates the promises when it tries to actually find and get the data, when it edits, creates, when it does the full CRUD. You can see it right here. It creates a promise of finding. It checks and finds the email, and we can see how it rejects and resolves. The data abstraction layer works hand in hand with the index, because the index has the routes of what is actually going through when the user creates a request. For the data abstraction layer, we just have our basic commands. We got create when we create a new account, name, email, and password. Log in when we're logging in through email. We can also go and find a user through that object identifier code. We have the update of a balance, and this actually happens when not only you check your balance just to see what it is, but we also have the deposit and withdraw. This checks the amount that we've got. And then of course, just dump all the data, give it all to us, just blah, spit it all out. That's my favorite one right there. And that's what the data abstraction layer does, is it creates that. Through the index, this is where we have all the user's ability to actually start those requests. We have the simple create account, which hosts the user's data, name, email, password. We have the login, which uses the email, but it also checks the password that the user has entered on the password page. We have the ability to do the same thing just using the ID, but I haven't implemented a page to search for ID yet. That's more with the Google account that we'll get to in a moment. Here we have the balance that we're checking of what is the balance, what do we have, and of course all data, dump it, give it to me, everything. In the index, I have created the extra routes for the Google authentication. This added a whole lot of extra things, and it took a little bit of testing as I was going through, and I'll show you the extra testing API pieces that I have still in the code, but not really used on the web page. We have the basic login page. If you actually go here and type the login, you will end up on a page that just says authenticate with Google, and you click it and that opens up the login. If I do that over here, log in. There it is. Authenticate with Google. You can see if I just go straight here, that opens up nothing because, well, we haven't done it through the correct route. So this is an old route that I no longer need to use. Now, when I do it normally, we go here and we go log in with Google through this button. And because I've already logged in, it goes right in for me. So just an extra old piece from when I was working to try to make it. I find keep your old code so you remember what you did. Now we use auth Google login and auth Google create. That's how I separated the ones that work. When I am using this specific method to use Google authentication, I have to have a callback. And this is how just Google authentication lets you know what you're doing. For this callback, because I'm using the login for both create and login, I have it go callback if you're logging in or callback if you're creating a new account. I'm using both. Again, when I was testing, I've marked it as deprecated. If you logged in successfully, I had you go to this protected page, and this one checked to make sure you are logged in. This is using a passport extra middleware function, which I have saved up here somewhere. There it is. This is using the passport.js, and this is checking to see if you're logged in. So just extra little steps that I've taken to make sure my code was working correctly. If something went wrong with logging in, whatever that would be, I don't know, all of Google is down, you'll get an error, and so I made a page for that. And then, of course, the logout, which logs you out. I have a couple extra ones for just checking to see if you've already logged in when you're switching pages. So I have made all of those all of these extra little routes and commands for the user, and a good chunk of them are no longer used in my project, but they're just there so that if I'm troubleshooting and making sure everything is working, I can still make sure I set and do that. I hope you enjoyed going through some little bits of my server code and my data abstraction layer. Stay tuned for the next video where I will actually use the buttons and show how you can add some money.